Today we are visiting Carswell medieval house. This is a medieval yeoman's house.
A yeoman in this instance being a farmer of a small estate as opposed to a servant in a royal household.
It's not known when the first house was built on this site, but it is mentioned in the records from the 14th century.
The house was probably rebuilt in the 16th century.
It's fairly safe to say there was once more to this place than there currently is now. It was once owned by the Earls of Pembroke. Now there's not much to walk around. This is the basement. Unfortunately, now it's gone a bit mossy and mouldy, and it's a shame.
This is brilliant, isn't it? I mean, it's all still here. I mean, this is a really old building that you wouldn't have imagined would have survived, because this sort of thing isn't palatial, it's not a big castle, so why bother to look after it? But you've got some really nicely made features in here. This is some really nicely dressed stone around this fireplace, and the floor that I'm standing on is a vaulted ceiling. I mean, this is, downstairs, this is an archway that holds the whole thing up. To find something like this in a building that is essentially a cottage. I mean, this is a little farmhouse. It's amazing that this sort of thing was done, let alone that it survived. This is an Undercroft, and the fascinating thing about this, the thing I really love about this, is that it's a vaulted ceiling. It's an archway that's blocked off at both ends. And that is some serious engineering, especially for this sort of time period. I mean, in order to build this sort of thing, you've actually got to make a big kind of framework out of probably wood or something like that, and then you've got to build the arch over it so that you build it from both sides and then it meets in the middle. I mean, that's an awful lot of work to go to build this thing. But because of the fact that they did, it means that it's still standing. These things are incredibly strong. And this is a great example of it. And it's not an incredibly lavish building. This is just what farmers were building. Now, whether this is an unusual one in that somebody knew how to do all this, maybe they'd been working on castles beforehand, either this was a standard way of building farm buildings and this is one of the very few that survived, or alternatively this is very rare, and sadly I don't know which one it is.
So, what do you think?
I think this is brilliant because this is how sort of normal people lived. They weren't the lowest of the low, they weren't your urchins, but they weren't lords and ladies and kings and queens and all that sort of thing. These were farmers. These were people who did the work that was required to make sure that there was food for people to eat. And I like that. It's not hugely lavish. It's got a nice fireplace. It's got good sturdy windows and doors. And you look at it, the stone is quite nicely dressed. But the other thing we're standing on the first floor, which is basically a vaulted ceiling beneath. That's an advanced method of building there. That's quite a clever way of doing things. And it's still standing now.
Well, it's quite thick stone. The walls are very thick.
Yeah, that's part of the reason that the walls have to be so thick, is the fact that this ceiling is applying pressure on the walls. If you had thin walls, the walls would fall out and the ceiling would collapse. We're not seeing the whole picture by any stretch of the imagination, but we are getting a little glimpse of how people lived, which is great.
It's another one of those places that you just wouldn't come and see if you didn't have an itinerary of other things that you were also going to see.
That's true. And we've driven quite a long way today to come and see this, and you wouldn't normally do that, but I'm really pleased that we did. Yeah,
you have to drive quite some distance down a farm track to get here, and it's tucked away amidst these other buildings, and you blink and you miss it, really.
You do. It is a tiny little thing.
It makes you wonder what else is tucked away that you just don't know about.
Yeah, that's the thing. There must be all sorts of places that have got things like this. Now, if you like this video, then please don't forget to hit that subscribe button.
And if you know of any little hidden away buildings that people might miss, let us know in the comments down below, because we'd be quite interested to
We would be
find out.
fascinated to know, yes.
Yeah.
TTFN.
See you next time.